Welcome to my World History Notes, where I share with you things that I'm learning and have learned about world history. And I'm working on the Cold War right now, just trying to uncover things that are on the surface that I can find, you can find, and looking at them and just trying to increase my knowledge about the subject. Hopefully, when you hear things I say, that this will encourage you to go looking too, if the subject interests you. I want to start today with an interesting character. Now, she didn't quite make it to the World War II, but I just thought she was interesting, and I wanted to point her out to you in case you wanted to take a little more deep look. Um, so this today I want to start about a person named Juliet Points. Okay. Now, Juliet Points was, now this is interesting. She was a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution. So you would think she's a patriot, right? And she was a founding member of the Communist Party of the United States, which we know was Joseph Stalin's mouthpiece and totally a child of his in Soviet Russia's in the U.S. I mean, she was highly educated, Columbia, Oxford University, London School of Economics. She had joined the Socialist Party of America in 1909, worked in the labor reform movement, and she, had a lot of influence there. And then she joined the Communist Party. Now, she the, briefly she was disenchanted with the Soviet system during the Great Purge when Stalin was just killing, indiscriminately killing tens of thousands of people, military, everything else. And she dropped out of her open party activities, began performing. She did underground party work for Soviet military intelligence, the GRU, before that. But then she supposedly was going to defect and come over to our side to actually be a patriot, but she disappeared. So an Italian American anarchist, Carlo Tresca, accused the Soviets of kidnapping her to prevent her from defecting. So she disappeared, and it's assuming she was murdered. So, and it was the Points' murder is the key to understanding the ultimate unraveling of the Communist Party USA's secret apparatus. Whitaker Chambers, who is very important in exposing Alger Hiss and others, he heard that Points had been killed for attempted desertion, and this contributed to him defecting in 1938. Elizabeth Bentley stated in the late 30s um, that she had been told that Points had been a traitor and was now dead. Bentley's defection at the end of World War II was in part motivated by fear of the example set in the Juliet Points case. So it's a very important person, interesting person, and led to a lot of defections and people turning on the Soviet Communist Party of America, and the and reporting people and reporting uh, some of these organizations and these groups that were spying for Stalin to our federal authorities. So that's very interesting. Her death caused a lot of trouble. Now let's go back to a timeline. I want to go back to 1945. We've discussed some things in the future. I want to come back to 45. There's some important things I want to say about Poland today. On June 23rd, 1945, representatives of the big four powers, China, the United Kingdom, that's Britain, the United States, and the Soviet Union, agreed to admit Poland to the United Nations. Now, Poland's very existence as the bridge between Central Europe and Russia, and the previous invasions of Russia by Napoleon and Hitler, made the Cold War inevitable. Now, from an online source, I'm going to read a little paragraph. Following the destruction of the Polish Jewish population in the Holocaust, the flight and expulsion of Germans in the West, resettlement of Ukrainians in the East, and the expulsion and resettlement of Poles from the eastern borderlands, Poland became for the first time in its history an ethnically homogeneous nation state without prominent minorities. The new government solidified its political power while the Polish United Workers' Party, PZPR, under Boleslaw Beirut, gained firm control over the country, which would remain an independent state within the Soviet sphere of influence. Now, I want to read from History of Poland by O. Halecki. Um, that I have, and I just thought when I was studying this, it just reminded me. I want to read this to you. It's a paragraph. So, um, at Yalta, the Polish question was only part of a much larger issue. Yet no other problem was discussed at such length, and in no other matter were the Russians less inclined to make any concession. For them, the annexation of eastern Poland was the final implementation of the historical process of collecting what they considered the Russian lands, a process which has started in the Middle Ages. This is important for today, what's happening with Putin in Ukraine. And making Poland in its restricted boundaries a Russian satellite was a basic objective of, of Russian policy from the days of Peter the Great. In achieving this, Stalin was more successful than Catherine II had been, whose policy of partitioning Poland with the Germans he had been obliged to follow in 1939. Now, in 1945, he was even more successful than Alexander I in 1815, because this time no Polish territory was left outside the new Poland, quote, restored by and connected with Russia. And also because of the Crimean Conference, Russia's revenge for her setback in the Crimean War of 90 years before, the Western powers accepted the Russian solution of the Polish question with even less opposition and misgivings than at the Congress of Vienna, which had happened 100 years before. Their readiness, their allies, readiness to compromise at the expense of Poland, this time the most loyal ally, was the more surprising, because the Russian solution was also the communist solution to the Polish problem, which made Poland, on whose conquest the control of all East Central Europe depended, the open gateway for communist expansion toward the West. So it's an important thing, that the liberation, the quote liberation of Poland, that from the communist, that the communists imposed, calling it the liberation of Poland, was a terrible threat to Europe. Um, the Red Army now no longer needed to defeat Germany, so there was no challenge to Stalin taking over Eastern Europe because of Poland. So anyway, it's just a very interesting thing when you think about what's happening now. Putin's argument about the Ukraine, how the Ukraine should be a part of Russia. There's an equal argument historically that Putin could have about Poland. So what we're seeing is maybe the start of World War III here, because if he is successful in Ukraine, then it is inevitable, because of historical necessity, that Russia would have its eyes set on Poland, trying to restore its sense of the control over that part of the world. So hey, stay tuned. So anyway, we're going to talk about the Cambridge Five in England next, and go on from there with things about the Cold War that I think you might find interesting. Whether you agree with me or not doesn't matter, as long as you're looking it up and you have your own opinion. So that's what I'm hoping. So you have a great day. Bye bye.